So Powell has cut the rate by 25 basis points, and not a lot really happened, even though what he said was pretty obvious. It didn't spook too much. But are we starting a new risk-on rally, or is this going to be a potential fake-out? The one big thing I want to say, though, this is only the third time since 1996 that we've actually cut rates when the S&P is at all-time high. That's pretty interesting. So let's go through what he said, what it means for Bitcoin, altcoins, and the wider market. If you like this sort of stuff, please do slap a like and comment what you think. Let me know in the comments, because not many people comment in these crypto videos, probably because scam bots are a bit annoying. I do apologise for that. The first rate cut of 2025 happened. Obviously, we all kind of expected it. And yeah, it's quite a shock to see that it is the first one of the year, technically. And Powell did call it technically a risk management cut, not a pivot. And he stressed that the decisions were by a meeting basis, and only one person throughout this thing. So if you're wondering, it's not just Powell that does this, it's like a committee, it's like a panel. One person went for 50 base points and the rest was 25. So kind of obvious. And you could argue, yeah, maybe the market might be a little bit priced in regarding obviously the S&P and the NASDAQ, because they are at all-time highs, obviously. So are we expecting more price cuts? Potentially for October and December. I will showcase the CME futures predictions in a second. But one thing that Powell did say, he didn't really promise anything. So yes, we've seen the S&P go up a little bit and it kind of faded. The dollar spiked, Bitcoin rallied, then dumped, and then rallied again. Classic confusion. And BNB's now $1,000 and a couple of altcoins starting to sprinkle up. It's very odd. And hello everyone. Guess what we are at now? We are now looking at the next meeting, which is in 40 odd days time, 41 days actually. So what we are expecting is another 25 base point cut. So if we are to stick, it'll be 10% at the current meaning right now. So we will talk about that in a minute. But again, there's another one in December, and that's far too far away to kind of see. So yeah, a lot of people, as it stands, it's very, 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 very early, are expecting 2 more cuts, which will bring it down to that 3.5 level-ish, give or take. But hey, let's talk about why it matters for Bitcoin. Now, the eagle-eyed viewers will know one thing and one thing only. We are above 117,000, which is above my level at the minute. It's not closed, it's a bit early. But rate cuts alone don't decide what Bitcoin's fate is, so to speak. It's more about cycle time and risk on, risk off, liquidity, ETF inflows. And the bigger picture is that Bitcoin is still somewhat under resistance as it stands, because we are not at the new all-time high again, which is mental when you think about it, considering what the difference is between the S&P versus, say, the NASDAQ, and you get the idea. The real signal is how liquidity rotates into this market, whether it comes in from another source, stock market, gold, whatever, or just overall just fucking institutional investment then leads to the retail to push it even higher. It could be interesting, but we will stick around, look at the altcoin rotation hit list to look at where things are, because I think it's important. But let's look at some technical analysis for Bitcoin. We are slowly chugging up. But are we going to reject at this point? I don't know, and I bloody hope not, because this is where it gets a bit more nitty-gritty and meaty. And as I said before, if you've been following along, and please do subscribe for more, this is my level of interest where we need to get through and break up and go towards that bit of a white circle. Now, for me, the fundamentals are pretty clear. We are still bullish. The cycle is still somewhat happening. And we are, I think, coming towards the crunch part of it, which is going to get very, very tasty very, very soon. But other than that, there's not much to kind of go on other than the fact that we have had, in my viewpoint, an all-time high correction going into this sort of level. We went to the 0.618 and we bounced off it like an absolute perfect T, and now we're on our way back up again. Now again, it's not perfect, it's never going to be perfect, but the reality is we have had a couple of interesting points with this. We are lagging versus the S&P, which is important, right? And we will talk about dominance and the liquidity side of it, but more importantly, dollar reacted and went to new lows. Okay, that's interesting. Obviously, yes, I can argue a lot of things about the NASDAQ and how it's hurtling to the moon, and it's pretty mental when you think about it. Same with the S&P 500. It has hurtled and enjoyed that. And as I said at the start of this video, this is the first time in a long time that we've cut rates. Only 3 times in its since 1996. I wouldn't say since existence, but that's probably where most people weren't born. We've cut at all-time high. God, that was a really hard sentence to get out. I do apologize. Altcoins. Rotation, right? So let's talk about it. BTC dominance is still dropping, kind of. It's not a hurtling, horrible crash. Interesting. But let's talk about another thing, because I think this is important, right? Stable currency dominance is still dropping. Now, it's not perfect. Let's go to the 3-day time frame. You'll see it in a bit more detail. It's dropping, but we are lower highs, higher lows, lower lows, lower. You get the idea, right? Lower highs. You get what I say. Basically, we made a new low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Are we going to go and make a new low? We need to get below 5%. That is where I want to get comfortable. I want us to be below 5%. This would indicate that money is rotating into the market from existing liquidity and people are going, oh, stables into Solana or BNB, Bitcoin, whatever it may be, right? That's important. But then again, we could talk about laggards and stuff like that. And there is a couple of things lagging at the minute, which is important, right? So when we talk about, obviously, the rotation, we need to look at the total 3/BTC. We are starting to rise, okay? That's important too. Because as this kind of gradually goes up, we're going to get momentum, and that momentum is going to push us higher into potential profit levels. Now, I know people are saying, what the fuck are you on about profit levels? Some things have actually moved pretty aggressively. Hype's doing really well. BNB's over $1,000, for example, right? It's not everything's got to be the same T. The Ethereum dominance and the laggard, you could argue, is potentially Ethereum. Now, this is technically my Q4 checklist as we are right now, and we're doing okay right now. We've got the first one kind of nearly in the tick pot. Ethereum/BTC still needs to do its thing. You know, USD dominance still needs to do so. You get the idea, right? But we are very much early to this still. Now, the reality is, as I said before, with stuff like this, even the other /BTC and the other dominance, we are starting to chug up a little bit, but not amazing. But that's where the problem lies. As I said before, we do have some little laggards, and this hasn't moved for a couple of days or weeks or, well, nearly a month now. Oopsie. So you get the idea. Ethereum is definitely chilling out, whereas the likes of Solana has taken up that kind of torch. Same with BNB, taking up the torch. Another laggard for you is XRP, done absolutely zilch since May time, which is really irritating. But you get the idea, right? So with that alone, yeah, you could look at liquidity and rotation, but the plain message is simple. We could fly if liquidity comes in. But I know people in the comments were like, but what about retail? Retail will come last and they'll push the boat last. They always do. Now, going back a little bit regarding Mr. Powell, because I know people are getting a little bit spooked. Why not 50 base points and stuff? But the idea was, and I mentioned it before, he's cut this as risk management. Inflation isn't dead. Inflation will probably bite us on the ass a little bit here. And the translation, I feel, is a little bit nervy, but not panicking. Cuts are supporting the market more than offering stimulus. And there's still no change with QT, and that won't change. But what is still happening? The markets are still doing well. Even though people hate Powell, I don't understand why. I think he's doing a good job. The markets are still at all-time high. There's been nothing thrown out the bathwater right now. It's been okay, and no one has been crushed, which is pretty rare when you consider what has been happened over the previous couple of years. But as I say, when you translate this over to the world of Bitcoin, it needs to go higher. Gold has done fantastic. The dollar has dropped a lot. Altcoins need to start going. Yes, there's institutional investment flying through every single corner right now, which is ridiculous, by the way. But ultimately, we haven't had that big push to the upside, which is probably why people are like, oh my God, this is really, really shit and I hate it. But there's nothing wrong with being average. There's nothing wrong with buying Bitcoin and getting the returns over the course of time, or Ethereum or Solana. Too many people are looking too speculative and the liquidity isn't flushing down to that point. And it kind of is, I think, burning a lot of people out. So even though we've had this positive kind of outlook, and what was said by Powell has not spooked much, realistically, it's not been a bad week, let's be honest. I know it's early, but humour me. But as I've alluded to it, altcoins are starting to slowly bubble a little bit. Nothing crazy though. Obviously, BNB's flying, obviously. Hype's been doing fantastically well. Oops, there's Hype. Chainlink still needs to kind of move from that point. Solana, as I said before, has been doing really well. Sui's kind of woken up a little bit over the last couple of days, but nothing spectacular, but they are bubbling away a little bit. And, you know, we could talk until we're blue in our face about like the past, and we talked about it in my previous video. Feel free to watch that one next. But more often than not, when we talk about the obvious in the room, Bitcoin is looking pretty damn strong considering where it's been. Altcoins are looking stronger. Liquidity is looking better. Everything's looking neater and tidy, but we are coming to Q4. If we continue this momentum, humour me, we might be in for a nice finish, and then that might be it. But who knows what could happen next? And late rallies always equal opportunity, but also could equal trap, especially if retail come in last and push the boat, as I say, into the slaughter zone, because that could become a very, very big problem. As you know, greedy little piggies get slaughtered, and that could happen very, very quickly in this market. But trade the levels and not the headlines. There's nothing wrong, as I said, with being average. Try not to have that recency bias and FOMO that's going to make you kind of feel a bit weird. And I'm going to say something totally random, and it's not even on my script here. But the first time in a long time, I opened YouTube to kind of get a little bit of inspiration to see what people are talking about. I genuinely felt like puking on that floor down there. It's a bit shit right now if you're in YouTube, and you can probably see my contents change a little bit in terms of focusing more on Bitcoin and just kind of being a bit more obvious. But some content creators are really trying to go a bit crazy right now, and I don't like it. Anyways, I love you all. Thank you for watching my videos, and I hope you have a good day.